In the southern edge of Memphis, in a dusty old neighborhood, a little boy sat quietly. The world around him was loud. Trains rumbled, dogs barked, grown-ups shouted. But inside him there was only silence. His name was Morgan. He was just 8 years old, but his heart carried the weight of someone far older. His mother worked long hours cleaning houses, and his father had already walked out on them. He shared a tiny apartment with his grandmother. Each morning before school, he'd sit by the window and listen to people's conversations. Because for him, speaking wasn't easy. Morgan had learned young that when he spoke, people didn't really listen. Whenever he tried to express himself, someone would cut him off. Children are meant to listen, not talk. Don't be so smart-mouthed. Your voice is too deep. You sound scary. So he stopped trying, but inside the words kept whispering, louder than ever. When he was alone, he'd stand in front of the mirror. There he could become someone else. At just 9 years old, he memorized a Shakespeare monologue for a school play. He didn't perform it. Instead, he wrote it in a notebook he kept under his pillow and whispered it in the dark after everyone was asleep. To be, or not to be. In the reflection of that mirror, he wasn't just a little boy anymore. He was someone powerful, someone who could say things no one else dared to. That's when he understood something. His voice, the one others had tried to silence, could speak volumes on a stage. But the world wasn't ready yet. So he waited. And while he waited, he became a master at something else: listening. He watched people's eyes, their hands, their silences. He learned to hear what wasn't being said. That silent learning would become his greatest gift. The first step from a quiet boy to a storyteller who would one day move millions. But for now, no one noticed. Not yet. Young Morgan stares into the mirror under the soft glow of a nightlight. His lips move in a quiet whisper. One day they'll hear me. And he smiles, as if he already knows what the future holds. Morgan was 12. The day he was supposed to perform on stage for the first time, the sound of his heartbeat drowned out everything else. The school play was a big deal. To him, it felt like the one place he might finally be heard. The role? A minor character. But for Morgan, it was an entire universe waiting to open. He had memorized every line. In front of the mirror, he rehearsed the part hundreds of times. By the time he heard the classroom applause, he thought he was ready. But the moment he stepped on stage, all the words got stuck in his throat. The spotlight blinded him. The room went quiet. And then a few giggles. "Come on, Morgan. It's just 2 lines. Say something." The teacher's impatient voice pierced through him like a blade. He took a deep breath, but no sound came out. And just like that, he was ushered off the stage. Disappointment, shame, and anger crashed over him all at once. He rushed to the bathroom and stood in front of the mirror again. But this time, he wasn't smiling. He only asked himself, "Am I really meant to be up there?" That night, he didn't speak. The next day, he didn't show up for the play. No one seemed to notice. But inside, Morgan held on to that one word. No. Because some no's don't come to silence you. They come to shape you. He would return to the stage a few years later. But next time, it wouldn't be about remembering lines. It would be about speaking in a way that made the world go silent just to listen. In the schoolyard, Morgan sits alone, writing in a small notebook. Someday, these words will belong to me, and the stage will carry my voice. By the time Morgan reached his late 20s, his love for the stage hadn't faded. But those years were less about shining and more about surviving. His days were filled with temporary jobs, and his nights were spent as a background actor in small plays. Most of his roles had only a few lines, but he delivered every line like it mattered. One by one, his friends gave up. Some got married, some changed careers. But Morgan? He was still living in cramped apartments, chasing auditions at sunrise. And after every tryout, the feedback was always the same. "Your voice is too deep. You're different." Maybe in another time. What they really meant was clear. "You don't fit into our mold." Years passed. 30, then 35, then 40. Each year brought a new hope, and another rejection. But the fire inside him never went out. Because Morgan wasn't just performing on stage. He was performing in life. Even while talking to strangers in the street, he was a storyteller. People could feel it even in line at a coffee shop. But Hollywood? Still silent. Then one day, on his 50th birthday, after a lifetime of no, he finally heard a yes. A television production didn't just want him for his voice. They wanted him for his presence. Because by then, the world was finally ready to listen to someone like him. That day, Morgan understood. Some roles don't arrive quickly, because they wait for you to grow into them. They wait until you're not just playing a character. You're living a destiny. Morgan stands alone on a theater stage, called in for a new audition. The seats are empty, but he closes his eyes and whispers, "I waited. Now it's your turn to listen." In the summer of 2008, Morgan Freeman was driving late at night through rural Mississippi. He was returning from a film shoot, tired as usual, but at peace. Life had finally found its rhythm after years of struggle, but fate wasn't finished speaking to him. As he turned a curve in the dark, he lost control of the wheel. The car flipped several times. Metal twisted. Glass shattered. Tires skidded. Then silence. When he opened his eyes, his arms wouldn't move. The pain was excruciating. He was badly injured. Very. At the hospital, doctors told him something he wasn't ready to hear. He might never fully regain use of his left hand. The nerves were damaged, not just a blow to his career, but to his very being. That hand had held Shakespeare's monologues for decades. It had scribbled notes in the margins of scripts, backstage and under dim lights. And now it might never feel anything again. Morgan fell into silence. For most of his life, he had told stories with his voice. But now his body was resisting him. The accident made headlines. Some said, this could be the end of his career. But Morgan kept listening to something deeper within. A voice was still whispering. This isn't where you stop. This is where you're rewritten. Months of physical therapy followed. Sleepless nights. Unbearable pain. But he never lost one thing. The desire to speak. Because Morgan had learned something long ago. The body can break. But your voice, your truth. If it belongs to you, no one can silence it. Late at night, Morgan enters an empty recording studio. His arm is in a sling. He steps up to the microphone, takes a slow breath, and whispers, I'm still here, and I still have so much to tell. Morgan Freeman's voice now gives hope to millions. But before the world could hear it, he had to hear it himself. Months after the crash, with his arm still healing, he walked into a recording studio. There was no script, no costuming, no camera, no stage, just a microphone, and something inside him that had never truly been silenced. When he spoke the first line, the room fell completely still. Those words weren't just read. They had been lived. The crew realized they weren't just listening to a voice. They were hearing a life echo. From that day on, the requests changed. Yes, there were film roles. But more than anything, people wanted his voice. Narrations, documentaries, commercials. People weren't just looking for a storyteller. They were drawn to his presence carried in sound. Because Morgan was no longer just an actor. He was a man who spoke through experience, who healed through tone, who stood for everyone who had once been silenced. In one interview, a journalist asked, You're known by your voice. Does that ever bother you? Morgan smiled and said, I couldn't speak for years. If millions are listening now, they're hearing more than a voice. They're hearing patience, pain, and the weight. His voice didn't just fill theaters. It reached hearts. Because when something is spoken from within, it always finds someone who needs to hear it. Morgan stands alone on a quiet stage. The curtain behind him is closed. There's no audience, and yet he speaks. His voice echoes, not into emptiness, but through time. To those who can hear me, know that I was once silent too. And now I speak for everyone still waiting to be heard. The curtain parts. There's no crowd behind it, but as the screen fades to black, his voice lingers. The voice was never the goal. It was the bridge.